All right, Rabbosai, good morning. Let us begin by thanking our sponsors, our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Iyar, Yona Shushie Ehrenfeld, in memory of Yona's grandfather, Yosef and Shmuel Aron, Marc Karstaedt, in memory of his mother, Chana Bat Shraggai, our week of learning sponsors, the Kiwi family, in honor of all the men who helped make the Shiva Minyanim during Mr. Kiwi Shiva, Ari and Shoshana Lerner, in honor of the Bar Mitzvah of Yosef Chaim, in Meretz Hashem this coming Shabbos, B'Sha'a Tova U'Mitzlachos, and in memory of, the shul dedicating in memory of the yahrzeit of Rabbi Gevant Min Rav Chaim Friedel ben Rabbi Yitzchak Dov. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all the neshamas will have an aliyah and the family's ein nechama. But say with that, let us begin. So we have a beautiful daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Yud Zayin, and we are actually picking up in Meretz Hashem on Daf Yud Zayin. So we'll say, so remember again, continuing a little bit, although it's only going to be on Amud Aleph, then we're going to get back to some of the more normative or regular sugyas in Meretz Hashem on Amud Beis. But we are beginning right now with a continued discussion. So remember again, the Gemara says as follows. So second line, Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. Rav Ada Breid Rav Yitzchak Amar. So Rav Ada Breid Rav Yitzchak said as follows. Hi Lishka. So we'll say, remember, we got into this whole discussion based on the location of the Lishkas HaTeloim, right? That's how this whole thing started. So, namely, again, we have this chamber in which we keep the lambs, right? That chamber, ultimately, the lamb chamber, the lambs being used for karbanos, the karban tamid. So remember, again, we began with a stira, a contradiction in terms of the location of the Lishkas Teloim. So on one hand, we had our Mishnah in Meseches Tamid, and the Mishnah Meseches Tamid says that the Lishkas HaTeloim was in the northwest corner. And then again, the Mishnah in Meseches Midos said that it was in the southwest corner. So that machlokes is what kind of fueled this entire ongoing discussion between two different versions in general of, we'll call it Beis HaMikdash real estate, or Beis HaMikdash location, Beis HaMikdash layout is the better word, between Meseches Midos and Meseches Tamid. Right, so that has been our spring word for conversations. Now the Gemara is jumping back to that for just a moment, focusing once again on this Lishkas HaTeloim. So says the Gemara, Rav Ada Rav Yitzchak Amar, Hi Lishka, this chamber, which were again the Lishkas HaTeloim, Aktsuye Maktsie. So we'll say this is very interesting. If you take a look at Rashi about halfway into the wider lines, Rav Ada Rav Yitzchak Amar, Ha Lishkas HaTeloim Aktsuye Maktsie, B'shtei HaMekutsos Niris Sha'arukahi Va'omedes b'marav u'ma'arechas letzad safon v'daram ad karvlo mekutsos shemikan mekan. So I'll say, interestingly enough, Rav Ada Rav Yitzchak says this Lishkas HaTeloim is a bit elongated, right? Essentially, it extends towards both directions. So, in fact, what Rav Ada Rav Yitzchak is saying is there's actually no stira, there's no contradiction between Tamid and Midos. But rather, again, I will say, when we started this discussion, we thought of the Lishkas HaTeloim, as we're going to see in just a moment. Well, so remember again, in yesterday's daf, we spoke about the Beis HaMokad, right? The Beis HaMokad was the large square, right? We'll see it in just a moment. The large square opposite the Mizbeach. In the middle of it was like where they had this large fire, and there were four small rooms in this Beis HaMokad. The Lishkas HaTeloim is one of those 4 rooms. So we often assume that Lishkas HaTeloim is just one square. Rav Ada Rav Yitzchak says, in fact, the Lishkas HaTeloim was a larger chamber that kind of extended both towards the northwest corner and the southwest corner. So in fact, it's not actually a contradiction between Meseches Tamid and Meseches Midos. It's just the way the chamber itself was situated. And therefore he says, V'da'asi mitzavon mischazile b'daram. If you're coming from the north, the chamber has the appearance as if it's situated in the south. V'da'asi midaram, and if you're coming from the south, mischazile b'tzafon. It has the appearance ultimately again as if it is situated in the north. So I will say, so again, thank you to Maishi for going ahead and sending out these pictures. So if you see it on the WhatsApp chat, again, it's a picture number 41. So you could see, when we first started out, we assumed, right? I'll show it to you on the larger Beis HaMikdash map a little bit later, because right now we're not that Beis HaMikdash map reflects the conclusion of this discussion. Right now in the Havamina is picture number 41. So we'll say you could see over here that the Lishkas HaTeloim, the Havamina was that it was situated in a corner. Now we're saying it's actually pulled out a little bit. So that's why, again, depending where you're coming from, sometimes it looks like it's in the northwest corner, and sometimes it looks like it's in the southwest corner. So the Gemara says, Umistabra, and ultimately, again, I will say, but it seems to be clear that it was really situated in the southwest corner. The Gemara says, Mimai. Now, how do I know that it was really situated in the southwest corner? So we'll say, this is very interesting. Midraminon lechem hapanim alechem hapanim. Because we'll say, we're going to see, there's another interesting machlokes as to where the chamber of the lechem hapanim was situated. Remember, again, the lechem hapanim was made in a particular chamber. Where was that chamber? So we'll say, so just so you should know, this is, Rashi points out that this is a machlokes between Meseches Midos and Meseches Tamid. Now I will say, here's what everyone agrees with. Both the Lishkas HaTeloim as well as the chamber of what we call Lishkas Lechem Hapanim, or Lechem Hapanim, was situated in Beis Hamoka. So we'll say, so remember, if you're looking at this picture, if you're looking at this picture over here, which was the one that Moshe sent out yesterday in the chat, so we, just so you understand, we are focused on this square over here. This square over here, which again is labeled as Lamed Hey, you can see on the key, Lamed Hey is Beis Hamoka. So it's this square over here. All the chambers in today's discussion are situated in this square. So remember again, in here I have the Lishkas HaTeloim, the chamber where the lambs were kept. In here I also have the chamber of the Lechem Hapanim. Now the Gemara says as follows. What the Gemara now posits as follows, that we have a dispute between Meseches Midos and Meseches Tamid as to where exactly the chamber of the Lechem Hapanim was situated. According to Meseches Midos, so the chamber for Lechem Hapanim was situated in the southeast corner of the Beis Hamoka. That square, right? We'll say this is called, this square over here, this Lamed Hey, this is called the Beis Hamokad. This whole square is called the Beis Hamokad. So the Gemara, and remember, why is it called Beis Hamokad? Because there was a fire that was burning inside of it. In fact, you'll see there's like a circle in the middle of this square of Lamed Hey. That circle is supposed to represent the fire. There's that broken line. Because remember, for the Beis Hamokad, part of it was in the Kodesh, and part of it was in the Chol. So when it comes to Lechem Hapanim, we have a machlokes where the Lishkas Lechem Hapanim is. Is it in the southeast of the Beis Hamokad or in the northeast of the Beis Hamokad? And the Gemara says, Mishaninan, Amar Afuna B'Reid Rav Yoshua, Marc Karstaedt derech Yomim, Marc Karstaedt derech Smol. And about the way we resolve that is, interestingly enough, everything depends on your orientation. Everything depends on how you are walking around the Beis Hamokad. If you go derech Yomim means you go from left to right. And derech small means you go right to left. So we'll say again, in the pictures that Maishi pointed out, again, this is picture number 42. Picture number 42. So depending ultimately, again, which direction you would be circling around the Beis Hamokad, that would determine your view of the orientation of the Beis Lishkas, the Lishkas Lechem Hapanim. Whether it's the southeast or whether it's the northeast, ultimately, again, depending on whether or not you're circling to the right or you are circling to the left. Picture number 42. So says the Gemara, Amud Beis. I Amrit Bishlama B'Ma'aravis Duromis. See, if you say that Halacha L'Maisa, the Lishkas HaTeloim was really in the southwest corner. So we'll say, remember again, this is now picture 43. See, if you say the Lishkas HaTeloim was really in the southwest corner, then ultimately again, the Gemara says, Hainu Dimetaritz Lechem Hapanim Alechem Hapanim. Then you could go ahead and answer up the stira between Midos and Tamid, and indeed you could say the southeast, northeast machlokes of the Lishkas Lechem Hapanim is not really a machlokes. It's just a question of whether you're walking right or whether you're walking left. But if you say that the Lishkas HaTeloim was in the northwest, Hi sof mighty rooted the lechem hapanim. And I will say, how do you reconcile the machlokes regarding the direction of the lishkas lechem hapanim? Elalav shmamina b'ma'aravis deromis havi shmamina. Rather, ultimately, again, what you have to say is that halacha l'maisa, the lishkas hateloim was really situated in the southwest corner, and indeed, this is the conclusion of the Gemara. And in fact, if we go back now, I will say, to the Beis Hamikdash map, And we're looking over here in Lamed Hey. So remember again, Lamed Hey being our Beis Hamoka. So we'll say, so just to be clear, the entire square in Lamed Hey is called the Beis Hamoka. And you could see now the halacha l'maisa of the arrangements of the lishko. So we'll say, so you have over here, so Lamed Vav is the lishkas, right. So Lamed Vav, so we'll say, so kind of going around this way. So this top one over here, this is the chamber in which they housed the stones from the Mizbeach that were broken down during the days of the Chashmonaim. Right? There was the Chashmonaim come back to the second Beis Hamikdash. They find that the Mizbeach has been used for idolatrous service. Can't use it again for the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They smash it. They break the stones, but you can't throw out the stones. So they house it in this chamber. So that's chamber Lamed Vav. Top. I guess if you're looking at the map, top right. Beneath that, Rabbi say, is Lamed Zayin, and you can see on the key over here. Ultimately, Lamed Zayin, Lishkas Lechem Aponim. Right? So bottom right is the chamber in which they bake Lechem Aponim. Lamed Ches on the top left is the chamber that they would use to descend into the subterranean mikvah underneath the Beis Hamikdash. And then Rabbi say, bottom left, Lamed Tes, is the Lishkas HaTeloim. So we'll say that bottom left, we'll say, is the southwest corner. So indeed what we see is that halacha l'maisa, the Lishkas HaTeloim was situated, we'll say again, you can see it over here, Lishkas HaTeloim was situated on the bottom southwest corner of the Beis Hamokad. So that is indeed halacha l'maisa. So we'll say, so now you know this, what I just showed you over here is the halacha l'maisa of the layout of the Beis Hamokad. Beautiful. Says the Gemara. The Gemara will say goes back to an interesting fact over here. So the Gemara says, one second. The Yoma says, "V'ha'amar mar kol pinos sha'ata pona lo yu ela derech yom mizracha." So we'll say, normally, remember again, beforehand, the Gemara quoted the machlokes about the location of the Lishkas Lechem Hapanim. Was it in the southeast of the Beis Hamokad or the northeast of the Beis Hamokad? And the Gemara says, in fact, it's not really a machlokes. Everything depends on just what? Are you circling the Beis Hamokad right to left or left to right? So the Gemara says left to right, or I should say right to left. We never lean left, right? We'll say we always go ahead. We just said in the Beis Hamikdash, whenever you go somewhere, you always turn to the right east. And again, we'll say that just reflects the general view that right always has a dominant chashivos, a dominant importance. So how could the Gemara be suggesting that halacha l'maisa we're going to go ahead and turn to the left? To which the Gemara says something very simple. The Gemara says, Hani mili ba'avoda. Yes, when it comes to the avoda of the Kohen Gadol, then yes, you go ahead and what? You always go right towards the east. But this is not talking about avoda. This, the Gemara says, Ahocha chushpana ba'almahu. We'll say here, chushpana ba'alma means we're just detailing information. So we'll say, in terms of trying to reconcile the location of the Lishkas Lechem Aponim, was it in the northeast or southeast? All the Gemara is just saying is it depends how you walk. But doesn't mean how you walk for the avoda. It's just trying to go ahead and give us kind of a tally of the chambers. So when we say that right has dominance for substantive things, like avoda. But in terms of just going ahead and kind of assembling information of where everything is situated, that we're not tied to the right for that particular reason. Incredible. So we'll say that.
I don't understand something. Southeast is southeast.
No. You'll look on the picture. Everything depends on your orientation, which direction you're coming from. You can see it's easier to highlight it on the picture. You'll see picture 41. I don't know that it's easier to see it on that one. I think it's picture. We sent out 41 and 43. Yeah, you could just see. It's just a question of one, like so many different things in life. It's just a question of which direction you are coming from and what you see first as you circle the Beis Hamokad. Take a look. It's easier for me to show it to you on the picture than it is for me to explain it outside.
So southeast is southeast, no matter where you
Dr. Shaz, did you see the picture?
Yes.
Good. So you can see again, depending on how you're circling the base, what you hit first depends on your directional orientation. Again, it's just a question of which chamber you're hitting first as you go around and the relationship of the chambers one to the other. So the Gemara goes like that. We'll say, so again, yes, southeast is southeast. So we'll say again, but remember, how you relate to directions. It's the same way you saw in the two images of the Beis Hamikdash that we saw yesterday, right? Depending on how you situate the image, ultimately determines your directional orientation. So too, when circling the chambers, which chamber you end up hitting first, bumping into first, determines your directional orientation as well. Says the Gemara. Let's go weiter. Shekohen gadol makriv chelik barosh v'notel chelik barosh. So the Gemara says as follows. So so now we're jumping back a little bit into the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says as follows, that the Kohen Gadol, so remember again, we just so you understand how we got into this. So the Mishnah is talking about over here, how halacha l'maitza, the Kohen Gadol does all of the avodah during the 7 days of sequestering. So now, as an aside, the Gemara said, the Kohen Gadol always has the ability to go ahead and what he calls being makriv barosh, which means the Kohen Gadol could come in and do the avodah whenever he pleases, as opposed to all other Kohanim who are part of a rotation. Right? So we'll say you get a mishmar, right? Your family gets a mishmar, but that mishmar is made up of multiple batei avos. If you're a regular Kohen, you can't come into the Beis Hamikdash and do the avodah whenever you want, but rather, again, you are assigned your particular time. The Kohen Gadol has the ability to go ahead and do the avodah whenever he wants. Furthermore, he could take whatever sacrificial portions he wants when he wants. Let's analyze. Says the Gemara, Tan Rabbanan, Keitzad makriv chelik barosh. What does it mean that the Kohen Gadol is makriv? What does it mean that he has the ability to offer first? So the Gemara says, Amar Ula, very simple. Amar Ula, Zuani makriv, right? Oh, sorry. Amar, Omer, Ola Zuani makriv, Mincha Zuani makriv. So we'll say, for example, Kohen Gadol walks into the Beis Hamikdash, they're about to offer up an Ola, and he says, I want to offer up this Ola. So he says, I want to offer up this Ola, or I want to offer up this Mincha. So we'll say he has the right to do so. Simple as that. He walks into the Beis Hamikdash, he could claim the right to go ahead and offer up whatever he wants, whenever he wants. Keitzad notel chelik barosh. So we'll say, here it becomes a little bit more complicated. What does this mean that he takes first portion? What does that mean? Omer, chatos zu ani ochel, asham zu ani ochel. So he could walk in, and let's say the Kohanim were offering up a chatos. He could say, I'm eating this chatos, or I'm eating this asham. So literally, he can go ahead and take any sacrificial portion he wants. V'notel chala mishtei chalos. Now we'll say this is very interesting. Now, remember, the shtei alechem over here that they're referencing is the special carbon of Shavuos. So he's permitted, so we'll say there are 2 loaves that are offered up. The Kohen Gadol is permitted to go ahead and take one of those loaves. So we'll say, now interestingly enough, what we're going to get into, well, let's see it. And he could take up to 4 or 5 loaves of the lechem apanim. Now, let's remember again, how many lechem apanim loaves are there? 12. So here we're saying there's shtei lechem. He could take 1 loaf from the offering of Shavuos, and he could take either 4 or 5 loaves of the lechem hapanim. So let's analyze this. Rebbe Omer, the Olam Chamish. Rebbe says, no, in reality, he's actually permitted to take 5 loaves. Always permitted to take 5 loaves of the lechem hapanim. Shnei Amar, v'haisa the Aron ulabanav. The pasuk says that the lechem hapanim will be for Aaron and his sons. So we'll say, what does it do? It's actually fascinating drasha. It equates Aaron and his sons. Mechza le'Aaron u'mechza le'banav. When it comes to lechem hapanim, half goes to Aaron and half goes to his son. So therefore, Rebbe's understanding half is 5. We'll discuss why that is in a little bit. So we'll say, Haguf Akasha. So we'll say, it seems to be, the way you're analyzing this is a little bit contradictory. Why? Amrit notel chala achos mishtei chalos. Money Rebbe. So we'll say, we're going to see now, let me tell you this outside a little bit for just a moment. We're going to see now an interesting discussion. As everyone agrees that a Kohen Gadol, just like he's permitted to be makriv barosh, he's permitted to do any avodah he wants, he gets preferential treatment as to which avodah he's allowed to do. So halacha l'maisa is noto chelik barosh. He's also permitted to go ahead and take whatever he wants first. So we'll say, interestingly enough, now there's a machlokas. How much is he permitted to take? Rebbe's going to say a Kohen Gadol is permitted to take up to half. Whatever it is that he's taking, he's permitted to take up to 50%. And I will say, Rebbe's logic in that is based on the pasuk of Lechem Hapanim, the Haisa the Aaron of Banav. Whatever Aaron's sons get, Aaron gets half. Aaron gets half, right? Kohanim get half, Aaron get half. So Rebbe holds he's permitted to take up to half. The Rabbanon say a little bit less than half. A little bit less than half. So that's going to be the machlokes. So watch this. So now says the Gemara, the Brisa you just quoted is contradictory. Why? Amrit notel chala achos mishtei chalos. Because also when the Gemara spoke about the shtei lechem, the 2 loaf offering of Shavuos, how much is the Kohen permitted to take? How much? 1 loaf, which is 50%. Exactly 50%. However, money, Rebbe, whose opinion does that reflect? That's Rebbe. That's Rebbe, that a Kohen Gadol is permitted to take half. So the Gemara says, Damar Palgo Shakil, Rebbe holds Kohen Gadol takes 50%. Ema Mitziasa, you know, say, what do we say by the lechem upon him? Right? How much is the Kohen Gadol permitted to take by the lechem upon him? Arba o Chamisha. Then I say, what's Arba o Chamisha? Arba Chamisha meis lechem upon him. Asan Rabbanon. That reflects the view of the Rabbanon, because what do the Rabbanon say? The Amri lo Shakil Palga. The Rabbanon say, Rabbi says, we're going to see that halacha l'maisa, a Kohen Gadol can't take a full half, he could take a little bit less than a half. So what says, you see the problem over here? In one Brisa, you're telling when it comes to the loaves of the Shtei HaLechem, the Kohen could take 1 loaf, 50%. That's the opinion of Rebbe, that a Kohen Gadol is permitted to always take up to 50%. Then you tell him about Lechem Abanim, he could take 4 or 5. They will say one thing is clear. Now, why 4, why or 5? We'll discuss that. But 4 or 5 is what? Is what? Less than half. That's the view of the Rabbanon. And here's the problem. Seifa ema seifa. What's the end of the Brisa? Rabbi Omer the Olam Chamish. Rabbi says, no, by the Lechem upon him, you could always take 5. So we'll say, understand how this Brisa is structured. Reisha Mitzias Rabbanon. I'm sorry. Reisha v'Seifa Rebbe Mitzias Rabbanon. You're going to tell me then that the way the Brisa is set up is that the first part and the last part of the Brisa are reflective of the view of Rebbe, and the middle part is reflective of the view of the Rabbanon. It sounds like a strange way to set up a Brisa. To which the Gemara says, no. Amra Abaye, Reisha Mitzias Rabbanon. So in reality, both the Reisha and the Mitzvah. So we'll say, so remember, the Reisha, that says that by the Shtei HaLechem of Shavuos, the Kohen takes 1 loaf. That's also reflective of the view of the Rabbanon. But why is that? I will say, how much do the Rabbanon say a Kohen Gadol could take? How much? Less than a half. So if he's allowed to take a full loaf, is that not 50%? That's not the view of the Rabbanon, that's the view of Rebbe. How can you say the view of Rabbanon? I will say, watch this. Umod Rabbanon, beprusa, the lav orech ar lemisla Kohen Gadol. So we'll say, this is incredible. Even the Rabbanon will agree, by the Shtei HaLechem, that the Kohen Gadol takes one full loaf. Why? Because they will say, what's the only other option if he's not going to take a full loaf? Break it. And it's not bakavadik to the Kohen Gadol to give him a broken loaf. So we'll say, interestingly enough, even the Rabbanon will agree that by the Shtei HaLechem, the Kohen Gadol gets 1 whole loaf, even though he's not entitled to it. Really, he should get less than a whole loaf. But because it's not bakavadik to the Kohen Gadol to give him less than a whole loaf, therefore, halacha l'maisa, you give him a full loaf. So therefore, I both say, so therefore, really everything is reflecting the view of the Rabbanon, except the last part. So the Rabbanon will say, Vashtei Alechem, he gets 1 loaf. By the Lechem upon him, how much does he get? According to the Rabbanon? 4 or 5 loaves. And then Rebbe comes along and says, no, he always gets 5 loaves. Fine, so let's talk about the loaves. Top of Yud Ches. Umay arba uchamish l'Rabbanon. Right? Umay arba uchamish. So we'll say, what do you mean 4 or 5 loaves? So first of all, we'll say, what does that mean? Is it 4 or is it 5? That's question number 1. What do you mean 4 or 5? That's number 1. And I will say, again, whose opinion is this reflecting? So watch this. L'Rabbanan da amri nichnas notel sheish v'yotzei notel sheish uschar hagafas delasos lo mishtei mesrei ba'i miflig betzir chada miflaga chamesh shakel. So let's listen to this. The Rabbanon hold that the way the Lechem Apanim was split up was as follows. You had 12 loaves. 12 loaves. So we'll say, how were the 12 loaves split up? 6 went to the outgoing group of Kohanim. 6 were given to the incoming group of Kohanim. And there were no additional loaves dispensed for the people whose job it was to open and close the doors. Okay, so therefore again, according to the Rabbanon, it's a straight split. 6 to the incoming mishmar, 6 to the outgoing mishmar. Kohen Gadol, according to the Rabbanon, always what? Gets how much? What's according to the Rabbanon? Gets what? Gets what? Less than half. So what's less? So essentially the way we look at Lechem Apah, so what's a little bit less than half? Ultimately, again, it's going to be 5. It's going to be 5. So therefore, according to the Rabbanon, in a normal situation, Incoming shift gets 6, outgoing shift gets 6, and Kohen Gadol ultimately again. And I was about to say, obviously, that'll mean the incoming and outgoing will go ahead and divide up the remaining loaves, but Kohen Gadol will ultimately take 5 loaves. Good, that's the Rabbanon. So we'll say, I'm sorry, let me clarify that once more. The way you would normally set up the division of the loaves, if let's say the Kohen Gadol was not present, would be 6 to the incoming, 6 to the outgoing. So the Gemara says, the Rabbanon hold that when the Kohen Gadol is there, how much does he get? How much does he get? A little bit less than half. So what's a little bit less than half of 12? Right? 5. That's it. So again, obviously if the Kohen Gadol is there, each shift is not getting 6. If the Kohen Gadol is there, the Kohen Gadol will get his 5, and then the shifts will go ahead and divide up the remaining loaves amongst themselves. The Rabbi Huda, the Amar Nichnas, Notel Shava, and I will say, now watch this. So that's the sheet of the Rabbanan. So that's where the number 5 comes from when it comes to Lechem Haponim. So on a regular week, Kohen Gadol is going to get a little bit less than half. That's the sheet of the Rabbanan. Therefore, I'll get 5 loaves. The Rabbi Huda, the Amar, Rabbi say, now watch this. Now we're going to see, this is also subject to a general machlokes about how the loaves were divided. Now, according to Rabbi Huda, he holds the Amar Nichnas Notel Sheba. Listen to this. He holds the incoming group gets 7. Right? Nichnas Notel Sheba, Shtayim Bischar Hagafas Delasos, and 2 of those loaves, we'll say, were given as extra compensation for the Kohanim who worked the doors. I was supposed to say, so part of the Kohanic responsibilities during that week was to open and close the doors. So apparently, again, according to Rabbi Yehuda, extra lechem hapanim was given to those who had to toil a bit more for the opening and the closing of the doors. The Yotze Notel Chamesh. So I'll say, so remember again, so therefore, the outgoing shift, or I should say the incoming shift, will get 7. The outgoing shift will take 5. So the Gemara says, Me'eser Ba'i Miflag. So we'll say, interestingly enough, so remember, we'll say what the Gemara is doing is as follows. The Gemara is showing us how the division of Lechem Hapanim would happen on a regular week if the Kohen Gadol were not present. So according to the Rabbanon, it's a simple 50% division. Incoming shift gets 6, outgoing shift gets 6. There's no additional lechem hapanim that is given to the Kohanim who had to work the doors, who had to control the opening and closing of the doors. Kohen Gadol gets a little bit less than half, and therefore, according to the Rabbanon, the Kohen Gadol gets 5 loaves if he's present. According to Rabbi Huda, Rabbi Huda has an interesting split. He holds that the loaves were split in a 7-5 split. 7-5 split. Why 7-5? 7 going ultimately again. Now, really what it means is 2 were allocated ultimately again to the Kohanim who opened and closed the doors. And then really the pool that you have to split between the 2 shifts was how much? 10. 5 and 5. So therefore I will say when calculating the portion of the Kohen Gadol, what do we take? We take the 2 off the top, right? Because the 2 that were allocated to the Kohanim who worked the doors, those are not part of anyone's division. Those are just taken out of off the top. Therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you really only have 10 loaves for division. Only 10 loaves for division. Apparently, again, Rabbi Yehuda holds like the Rabbanon, that the Kohen Gadol gets a little bit less than half, and therefore a little bit less than half of 10 is 4. Right? Because you also remember again, based on the Gemara before, we're not giving the Kohen Gadol partial loaves, we're only going to give him whole loaves. So both say, this is the fundamental machlokes. So therefore again, when the Brisa says, when it comes to lechem upon him, sometimes you give him 4, sometimes you give him 5, it's reflective of 2 different opinions. Again, one more time, according to the opinion ultimately again of the Rabbanon will say lechem upon him is a pool of 12. It's a pool of 12. Half goes to the incoming shift, half goes to the outgoing shift. When determining the portion of the Kohen Gadol, we will go ahead and give him a little bit less than half, and therefore we give him 5. Rabbi Yehuda, will say, interesting enough, also agrees with the Rabbanon that the Kohen Gadol always gets a little bit less than half, but Rabbi Yehuda has a different division of lechem hapanim. Why? He takes 2 off the top as the payment for the Kohanim who took care of the doors. Therefore, for division purposes, there's only a pool of 10. So normally, again, 5 to the incoming shift, 5 to the outgoing shift. If the Kohen Gadol is there, we give him a little bit less than half, which is 4. Good. Says the Rava Amar, Kulu Rabbihi. Rava says no. In fact, this entire section reflects the view of Rabbi. Now I will say, remember again, what does Rabbi hold? Rabbi holds Kohen Gadol gets half. Kohen Gadol not less than half. Kohen Gadol gets half. So the Gemara says, 1 second. But according to Rebbe, then how much lechem hapanim should you get? Really? 6. Well, so I will say, so maybe 6 or maybe 5. Right? What does it depend on? It depends ultimately again on whether or not you remove 2 loaves from the top to pay the kohanim, to give to the kohanim who work the doors. But it's for sure not what number. What number doesn't come into the equation? 4. Right? So the Gemara says like this: Rava Amar Kula Rebbehi, v'savar lak Rebbe Huda. Rava says Rebbe hold like Rabbi Huda. What does Rabbi Huda hold? Rabbi Huda holds that 2 loaves are taken off the top. Right? According to Rabbi Huda, 2 loaves are removed from the division because those 2 loaves go to the kohanim who work the door. So you're only dealing with a pool of 10. Ve'elamai arba hachamish b'ile mishko. But at the end of the day, why 4? Why 4? The kohen ultimately again should be entitled to at least 5. So the Gemara says, Lokasha, this is actually very interesting. Ha di'ika mishmar hamis akev, ha deleka mishmar demis akev. So listen to this. Sometimes you would have a mishmar that would need to stay on. I will say, take a look at Rashi for just a moment. This is really quite interesting. Elamai arba ha chamish b'ile mishko. So why does it say 4? Allah chalamais again, she get at least 5. Lo kasha hadika mishmar misakef. Look at Rashi. Pamim she yom tov chal b'sheni b'Shabbos. Sometimes Yom Tov falls out on a Monday. V'yesh mishmar maktim uba me'erev Shabbos u'misakev ad haregal. So we'll say you would have sometimes the following situation where let's say Yom Tov falls out on a Monday. Now we'll say Yom Tov falls out on a Monday. So remember again, the mishmar doesn't need to come. Remember on Yom Tov all the mishmaros are on. Right, all the mishmaros serve on Yomim Tovim. So sometimes what would happen is if Yom Tov fell out on a Monday, a mishmar would already come on Erev Shabbos. Right, just to make sure to be there on time. Or misaki v'ataregel shekala mishmaros baos beregel. So I'll say so again. Sometimes Yom Tov will fall out on a Monday, and nevertheless you'd have a larger number of mishmaros already assembling as of Erev Shabbos. As of Erev Shabbos to be there on time. O pamim shemotza Yom Tov Erev Shabbos, or sometimes Yom Tov itself, or Matzah Yom Tov, would be Erev Shabbos. V'hamishmoros holchos them common be'erev Shabbos. V'yesh mishmar shemis akiv sham ad Matzah Shabbos. So we'll say what it's saying is as follows: sometimes Yom Tov begins on a Monday, but mishmoros would show up early on Friday, and sometimes Yom Tov ends on Thursday night, but you'd have mishmoros that would remain in the base of Mikdash, remain in Yerushalayim until Matzah Shabbos. Maybe they couldn't get home in time, whatever it was. Utam Mesechas Sukkah, Shabbos Shebesoch HaRegel, Hayukala Mishmoros Shavios Bechiluk Lechem Aparim. I will say Shabbos in the midst of Yom Tov, which I guess we would call Shabbos Chalamayid. Shabbos Chalamayid, or if you would go, we'll call Shabbos Chalamayid, or for that matter, if Shavuos falls out on Shabbos. So we'll say when all of the Mishmoros are there, they all have equal opportunity in the Lechem Aparim. V'chein Yom Tov hasamach l'Shabbos. So Shabbos say if Yom Tov falls out close to Shabbos, bein milafanel shin yicholin lashu b'Shabbos l'mkamon bein la'acharesh al karchan hein maktiv and lavo me'erev Shabbos hayu kol mishmoros Shabbos bechiluk lechem apanim shari al karchan shohin sham. So we'll say now watch this. V'hari hi kishabbos shebesoch haregel. So we'll say I just want to point out what's happening over here. So here's what we have. On the regalim, on the Yomim Tovim, all of the Kohanim came to the Beis HaMikdash to serve. Okay? Therefore, Shabbos that fell out during Yom Tov, or Yom Tov that fell out on Shabbos, let's say Shabbos Chalamayid Sukkos, Shabbos Chalamayid Pesach, or Shavuos that falls out on Shabbos, all the Mishmoros are there. And because they're all there, they all get to share in the Lechem Hapanim. They all get to, which makes sense. They're all there. All get to share Lechem Hapanim. However, Rashi says, Chal Yom Echad LaHafzik Bein Saim Omi Lefanea Kigon Shekala Moed Bechamishi B'Shabbos Omi Acharash Hischa Moed B'Sheni B'Shabbos Lo Hayel Lahem Lahaktim Lavo Mipnei HaShabbos Einon Shavos Ela Mishmar Hamis Akev B'Shabbos Bein Shu Mishmar Echad Bein Shu Mishmaros Harbe Notel Shtei Chalos V'Ashar Mischalkos LaHamishmar Hayotzi V'Hanichnas Shezman HaKavos. Let's listen to this. So if all the Mishmoros were supposed to be there on Shabbos, then everyone shares in the Lechem Hapanim equally. But I will say, what happens if a number of Mishmoros are there, but they don't have to be there? I will say, what does it mean they don't have to be there? For example, Yom Tiv doesn't start until Monday, but Kohanim Zrizin Hain, and they showed up on when? On Friday. Or Yom Tov was over on Thursday, but the Mishmoros decided to still stay for Shabbos. In that case, the Mishmoros who stayed but did not need to stay only get to share in 2 of the 12 loaves. And the remaining 10 loaves get divided up between the Mishmoros who are supposed to be there. So the Gemara suggests over here, that's what it means when sometimes it says 4, sometimes it means 5. Ultimately, again, it's dependent on whether or not there are other Mishmoros who are staying. Ultimately, again, if there are other Mishmoros who are staying, those additional Mishmoros who don't have to be there, I want to be clear. When the Mishmoros have no choice but being there, for example, Cholamayid, Shabbos Cholamayid, then everyone shares Lechem upon him equally. But when the Mishmoros happen to be there, not because they have to be there, but because, again, halacha lamaisa, they're coming early or they're staying late, they only get to share in 2 of the loaves, but the remaining 10 loaves ultimately are split up amongst the standing Mishmoros. So the Gemara therefore says, that's what it means, sometimes 4, sometimes 5. Again, depending on how many Mishmoros ultimately were staying inside of the Beis HaMikdash. Good. So the Gemara says, 1 second. I'ika mishmar hamisakev mishmona bay lemiflag. But 1 second. So therefore the Gemara says as follows. If there are additional Mishmoros who are staying, then in reality, halacha l'maisa, there's only 8 loaves in the pool that are left. And therefore the Kohen Gadol of Shakel Arba, Ileka Mishmar Misakev, Me'eser Ba'i Lemiflag, V'Shakel Chamesh. Say, Rabbi will say again, if there are Mishmoros who are staying, we'll say, so remember again, let's bring this all together. So it could be that this reflects the view of Rebbe. But Rebbe holds of who? Rebbe holds like who? Rabbi Yehuda. So we'll say, so watch this. So what does Rabbi Yehuda hold? Rabbi Yehuda hold? That in general, when dividing up Lechem Apanim, what do you remove from the top? 2. Why? To give to the Kohanim ultimately again who are in charge of the doors. So therefore, I will say, therefore you're taking 2 off the top. So if there are no other Mishmoros that are staying, just the Mishmoros who are supposed to be there, so you have a pool of how many loaves? 10. The Kohen Gadol gets half according to Rebbe, therefore he'll get 5 loaves. However, if there are other Mishmoros who are staying there, then Abba say what effectively happens. This is fascinating. You get 2 that are removed from the top for the Kohanim taking care of the doors. Then what? 2 more removed for the Kohanim who stayed over, which only gives you a division pool of 8, which then give the Kohen Gadol his half, which is 4. So Rabbi say it's really fascinating, and that's as the Gemara says. So the Gemara says, "Ihachi my Rebbe Omer the Olam Chamesh." So therefore, Rabbi say if that's the case, then why does Rebbe say the Kohen Gadol always gets 5? That's not true. Even according to Rebbe, there could be a situation where the Kohen Gadol only gets 4. Kashya. In fact, that is a good question. So Rabbi say what's fascinating about this is as follows. We have a number of really 2 fundamental machloksim over here. Machlokis number Rabbi say is how much does the Kohen Gadol get? Right? So how much does he get? Does he get like Rebbe 50%, or does he get like the Rabbanon what? How much? A little less than 50%. That's machlokis number 1. Machlokis number 2 is in the division of the lechem apanim. Do you take 2 loaves off the top to give to the Kohanim who are in charge of the doors? That's another machlokis, Rabbi Huda and the Rabbanon. The Rabbanon say nothing special given to the Kohanim in charge of the doors. Rabbi Huda says ultimately what? 2 off the top, given to the Kohanim who deal with the doors. So therefore, I will say when you look at the machlokis, Rabbanon and Rabbi Huda, the Rabbanon will say you have a pool of 12. Kohen Gadol gets a little bit less than half, and therefore, if he's there, how many loaves does he get? 5. According to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda will also agree he gets a little bit less than 50%, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, he will say you really only have a pool of 10, because 2 are given off the top to the Kohen who are in charge of the doors, therefore Kohen Gadol walks away with 4. Then Rabbi said, the Gemara comes along, what about the sheet of Rebbe? Now this is fascinating. Now Rabbi, remember again, Rebbe holds 50%. Rebbe holds 50%. But Rebbe also holds like Rabbi Yehuda, namely that 2 come off the top for the Kohanim in charge of doors. But Rebbe now throws in another variable. What's the other variable? If you have a situation where because of the proximity of Yom Tov to Shabbos, right, you have additional Mishmoros who are there, the division of the Lechem Panim will also look different. But what does it depend on? It depends on whether or not those additional Mishmoros need to be there for Shabbos. If all of the Mishmoros need to be there, then how does the division take place? all Kohanim divide all of the bread. But if you have a situation where the additional mishmaros are there, but they don't have to be there, then ultimately, again, the division will look differently. So we'll say, watch this. If all the Kohanim have to be there, then all Kohanim go ahead and share in the bread equally. And what's the portion of the Kohen Gadol? According to Rebbe, is going to be 5. Because Rebbe agrees with Rabbi Yehuda that you separate out 2 loaves from the top, so there's only a pool of 10, but Rebbe holds the Kohen Gadol gets 50%, which ultimately is 5. But it will say, watch this. If you have a situation where there are additional mishmaros who came early or stayed late, but they didn't have to. For example, Yom Tov's not starting till Monday, but they decided to come Erev Shabbos, or Yom Tov was over on Thursday, and they decided to stay for Shabbos. In that case, we'll allocate 2 additional loaves, 2 loaves, to the tarrying mishmar, to the mishmar that came early or stayed late. And therefore we'll say, in that model, according to Rebbe, how many loaves do you have left in the pool? How many loaves? 8, right? Because remember again, 2 off the top for the Kohanim in charge of the doors, 2 now for the Kohanim who are tarrying, a division pool left of 8, Kohen Gadol ultimately again will get 4. We'll say, how do we paskin? So the Rambam paskins like Rebbe, that Kohen Gadol gets 50%. That's what it means. When we say Kohen Notel Chelek Berosh, that the Kohen Gadol ultimately again takes his portion first, we paskin like Rebbe that Kohen Gadol takes 50%. But I will say, obviously, that 50% is going to depend ultimately on how the pool itself is situated. I will say, let's begin the next Mishnah. We have another minute or two. We can go ahead. We'll say incredible sugya. Says the Mishnah, Masru lo zikenim miziknei bezdin. So we'll say, so now the Mishnah says as follows, really incredible. The Mishnah says that still, remember, we're fully focused now on the topic of sequestering, right? This is all about sequestering. So now we'll say, let's understand what we've done. We've established that he's sequestered for 7 days. Where is he sequestered? Little Chazara? Lishkas Parhedrin. Excellent. Very good. Right? What happens during the 7 days? We've already established. What is so step 1? What is he doing during the 7 days? Learning. Right? He's doing all of the daily avoda. Right? You want to say, remember again, just based on what we've seen, he's doing all of the daily avodah, which means he's offering the tamid, he's offering the kitoras, right? And by the way, once he's in the Beis Hamikdash, the Gemara tells us, notel chelik parosh, or I should say, what was the lashon? Kohen Gadol makriv chelik parosh, in addition to all the other avodos that's happening. So the only avodah they make him do every day is the tamid and the kitoras. But once he's there, any other avodah he wants to do, he has the right to do so. Furthermore, he could take any sacrificial part he desires. So the Gemara now says, now we'll say we get into it a little bit more. Masrulo zekinim iziknei bezdin. So we'll say what else happens? They give him teachers. They give the Kohen Gadol teachers. Zekinim iziknei bezdin. Ultimately, again, the oldest, most venerated sages. They call him the fun of Beseder Hayom. And they teach him the avodah of Yom Kippur. Literally, again, go through it in Parashas Acharemos. So they go through Parashas Acharemos with the Kohen Gadol. But Omrim lo, they say to him, Ishikot. And we'll say, you know what? Actually, we'll stop over here. Okay, we'll pick up the Mir Hashem with the Mishnah tomorrow. We'll say incredible Yashikah. Yeah.